All right, well, hey guys, welcome to Burn the Ship, the podcast that inspires entrepreneurs to go all in and connects them with professionals that can help them do it. Today we have Jonathan Porter here. Thank you, Jonathan, for coming in.
Thanks so much for
We
having me.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Jonathan is with porterlogic. So tell us your journey. How did you get to where you're at? You know, what brought you to this industry, what you were doing before?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've honestly been an entrepreneur my entire life. I've grown up in a very entrepreneurial family. My parents have a small business in the residential construction area. So always knew I would kind of start a company at some point. Even back to, when I was in Boy Scouts, I was the top selling popcorn seller. And I actually had a side business in middle school and high school making flyers for real estate agents. So I kind of have always had this mindset of find a problem, if I can solve it, and make a business out of it, go for it. So
No, that's awesome.
did engineering at Georgia Tech and industrial engineering actually, and got right into supply chain after that. So went to work for a large supply chain software company called Manhattan Associates. They make warehouse management software, transportation management software. So there's a lot of software behind when you click buy on a website, all of the kind of software that makes that possible for that package to then get to your door. That's kind of the supply chain software world that I found myself in. And it fit perfectly because I love technology, I love computers, I love everything about coding, kind of self-taught coder, did a little bit of coding in school, but had been coding on the side since high school. And so have worked at a few companies after Manhattan, did a business intelligence startup, went to a couple smaller boutique consulting firms, but knew that I wanted to start my own company. I really enjoyed the flexibility and working for myself and kind of setting my own boundaries. So actually at about the end of 2019 is when I started working for myself. So I knew pretty quickly that I wanted to do some kind of a product, but found out very early on that is a long haul. That is a really long stretch to get there. So I had to start bringing in revenue somehow. So that's kind of where the first business emerged, which is more of a contract development, custom software development side, where I'm doing work for clients and building out custom pieces of software. But got that kind of up and running and got some of the revenue coming in so I could pay the bills. And that's when I really started focusing on what became porterlogic, which is a supply chain platform that allows companies to add agility and flexibility and resilience into their supply chain software. So it's definitely been a journey, and it will continue to be a journey. I think that's one of the most important things is that we all enjoy the journey that we're on.
Yeah.
But I absolutely love where I'm at. So.
That's awesome. How long have you had porterlogic?
So porterlogic itself has been operating for a little less than a year at this point. We started off by doing a lot of kind of market research, customer discovery, really trying to hone in on the problem that we wanted to solve. We kind of knew the arena that we wanted to operate in, but really wanted to focus in and niche down on a particular problem to solve, not trying to be too broad at first. So then we built out the technology platform. I did most of that. I'm like I said, coder, engineer. So built that out. We're kind of in the pilot phase right now. So working on kind of proving out the system, getting a couple of these proof of concept going so that we can really, we know the value that we bring, but at the same time making sure that the market is there and that we can really prove what we believe. So with kind of the goal of really kind of broader launching towards the end of this year and into next year, kind of opening up to a broader market.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So you're from Atlanta, from Georgia, and you went to Georgia Tech. What did you study there?
Studied industrial. It's called industrial and systems engineering, actually. So it's a excellent program, and just generally speaking, it really helps you understand systems and processes. I originally was thinking of doing mechanical engineering, actually, but went to a meeting with I think it was the dean or somebody up in the mechanical engineering school, and the story that they happened to tell me, nothing bad about mechanical engineering, but they told me a story about designing ductwork for buildings, and it just didn't sound as appealing to me. So that's really what kind of made me say, okay, let me look at some of these other engineerings, and found industrial, and it really fits the way that my mind works. extremely analytical and just very logical. I break down systems, and I mean, even just walking around the house, I'm optimizing the route and how many stops. I mean, I'm definitely a nerd. There's no hiding that. So
does that tie in with your business?
I would say absolutely. I mean,
Okay.
part of I think anything about code and software is that you kind of have to be able to think that way. It takes it takes a mindset of being able to see a problem and break it down into its steps, because then that's how you kind of go out and do the coding of it. So I would definitely say that plays to the business.
So I saw when we looked at the website, and we were kind of doing a little bit of research to kind of get a feel for, kind of what you guys have out there in the marketplace. I saw low code.
Yep.
And we've had we do a lot of work with software companies.
Sure.
And so we've seen no code
Yep.
advertised, and there's a lot of these different catchphrases that we see out there. What does that mean for you guys? Like how much, that distinction between no code, low code, full development.
Yeah.
How do you walk that line? Like what's kind of underneath the hood?
Yeah. It's a great question, and it's a hot topic right now. A lot of people are talking no code, low code, and the line blurs definitely. I don't think that there's a super formal definition necessarily. In my opinion, it seems like low code is where it is very visual based editors that you're using to create whatever that technology is set out to create, whether that's creating other applications or just, generally speaking, other low code, no code systems. We are very much calling ourselves low code because our target user is more in the somewhat technical arena. So we're not necessarily saying that it's a full-time developer that's going to use this, but somebody traditionally probably in like the IT department of a supply chain organization. We have plans to kind of further expand into full business users, and kind of like citizen developer is the term you're hearing a lot now. Right. So we do want to broaden that user base, but kind of we're putting our foot in the ground at low code because I think a lot of the no-code systems kind of miss the mark in the functionality. I mean, there's many systems that are great at what they do.
They make big claims.
Well, but it's hard to sometimes really get the functionality you need out of that. And that's where more of this low-code can kind of capitalize on the efficiency gains, because I say this coming as a software developer, coding full development is extremely inefficient, especially for one-off custom needs. Building a technology platform, well, that's one thing, but kind of if you're just trying to build your one thing, it's an inefficient way to do it. So we benefit and get everything from that kind of visual editors, drag and drop. We speed up the process, but still then have that level of detail that you can get to in order to really achieve the functionality you need.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think that's what it seems like is if I'm wanting to build, let's say, a CRM or just something for my business, and I want to start from scratch, I'm literally, and I bring you in to just start at the very foundation of it. You got to do everything literally from scratch. Like that's a hugely expensive project. Very, like you said, very inefficient. So I could, that the appeal of that low code kind of, it's kind of like the guts of it are already there and in place, and you can just kind of customize it and just kind of, I'm sure that its capabilities grow over time too.
Absolutely.
Because you're still having to build things behind the scenes.
Oh, absolutely.
To give it more, to appeal to a broader audience.
Yeah, it's definitely not low code behind the scenes. I'll say that. So,
that's right.
But no, you're absolutely right. And I think, every company, every organization does have things that are unique about the way that they operate. It's very difficult in today's business landscape to find off-the-shelf software that's going to do exactly what you need. Even down to, you mentioned CRMs, but communication tools, all of them. They all have pros and cons, and that's the challenge of when you're building off-the-shelf software, is that you have to try and appeal to the broadest market, but you end up, missing some of that at the end there. So I think that's where tools like porterlogic, and there's a lot of other low codes out there, but specifically the way that we're building porterlogic is meant to kind of be a layer on top of existing supply chain technologies. So that's, I think, one of the kind of unique opportunities we've seen in the market is that we're not trying to replace existing technology. I mean, there's a lot of excellent warehouse management systems out there, transportation management. Those are massive systems that are taking, 12 to 18 months to implement and are extremely expensive. So we're just trying to make those easier to work with.
So are we talking about so let's say I'm I'm a manufacturing or
Sure.
I'm some kind of logistics or, something like that. I'm in somewhere in the supply chain.
Yeah.
And I could have 2, 3, 4, 6 different pieces of software that are running in my office.
Yeah, I would say
And
at least.
we're talking about integrations from one thing to another. So
That's
I've
part
got
of it.
2 different tools that I use and I want them to be integrated to each other.
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. That's a big piece of supply chain technology is making all the systems talk because there's just best of breeds in different arenas. So some people are going to be better at building order management. Some people are better at warehouse management. So yes, you end up with a lot of different softwares, usually from different vendors. So making them talk is a challenge, and that's one of the things we are building into porterlogic to make that easier. But one of the things that we're really trying to capitalize on as well is exactly that, the plethora of systems out there. And so we don't want you to have an additional 3 or 4 systems just to make your core systems talk to each other and work together. We want to have one system that you can layer on top that's going to be an extra layer of everything you need to make those core systems do their job most effectively and let you operate your business the way that you want to. So I think that it's just blown me away in my supply chain career how unique some of the requirements really get. I mean, just small example, but I did a project with a large food service distributor. So, they're distributing to restaurants, and the level of detail about the food requirements and how they're stored, and that certain products can't be stored on top of others because, you wouldn't want raw chicken dripping on vegetables or something. So, it's all logical things, but it's just so specific, and shellfish is always something that stands out in my mind. It's funny, but the receiving requirements of bringing a box of shellfish product into a warehouse is astronomical. So it's just things like that an off-the-shelf packaged software, it's never going to be able to cover.
Close.
And it's not efficient for them to either. It's not in their best interest to build that level of custom functionality into their technology.
Sure.
So that's where I think porterlogic has a real synergy with some of these other softwares and other vendors. We're not looking to compete. We're looking to make your systems better. We're looking to, let your clients do what they want to do while also still using your software.
Okay, so we're talking maybe I'm a smaller, medium-sized player somewhere along the chain.
Yeah, we typically go for the medium to kind of small enterprise. So we don't try and go after the kind of huge, like the Fortune 50 or
so not the startups, not the huge whales.
Yeah, we kind of have this nice chunk in the middle there.
So it's I've got this one main thing that is my, what you'd call the core, the system we live in a lot. And then I have lots of other things that we use. Are we talking about kind of coming in and doing a consultation where we assess the whole landscape and maybe build something, but on the platform, and where it potentially might replace a few of the kind of peripheral things that you're using, and you could kind of maybe go from 8 systems down to 4 and something like that? And is it that type of thing? You are doing a full service kind of survey at the beginning.
You can do that, and we do definitely offer kind of professional services type consulting engagements like that. Really, where we see it going is more empowering the company to do a lot of this themselves. So that's one of the things that I found early in my career is that folks on the kind of the industry side, per se, the folks working at the supply chain organizations, whether it's in the IT departments or just kind of in your operations side, very handcuffed to a lot of the vendors. You choose a couple of vendors, and you really, you rely on them a lot. And if that relationship doesn't pan out, or for whatever reason, you're kind of stuck. So we see a real opportunity to help let the companies themselves give them the tools that they need to enable their processes, enable their system. And of course, we're always here to help. And, we can do exactly as you're saying, some of that consulting type work to analyze your systems. We can help you eliminate systems if that's your goal, but like I said, we work with a number of other systems, and so that's not necessarily a goal of ours. We're just trying to help you get as much value as possible, and if that means for you simplifying your systems, then we can absolutely help you there.
That's great. So potentially a SaaS model then too.
Absolutely.
I mean, that may be more the direction is what you're saying.
And for our audience that doesn't know, what is SaaS?
SaaS is software as a service. And so, yes, we are SaaS. Essentially what that means is instead of buying the software outright, is that we are providing the software to you as a service. So you're typically subscribing to that, whether that's in a kind of per transaction basis. We do more of an annual subscription. Some people will do monthly subscriptions. And it's a term that's really started to come into business software recently, but SaaS throughout everything. I mean, anything you're subscribing to on a monthly basis from a software perspective, whether that's an app or email, whatever that might be, that could kind of fall into that SaaS category. And we are SaaS. We are kind of true cloud native. That's one of the things that we really see the supply chain going is it's starting that huge cloud transition. And I'm sure you may be asking, well, hasn't cloud already happened? And in some industries, absolutely. I mean, we've been benefiting from cloud technologies for 10, 15, 20 years at this point. But the nature of supply chain software is such that it is it's mission critical to these companies. So there's been some lagging behind in accepting the kind of the cloud benefits and moving some of these technologies into cloud. But really over the last 3 to 5 years, we've seen an acceleration in that, and I think that's one of the areas that the supply chain software industry still really has to grow, is to continue that move into the cloud, just because there are so many benefits. You can look at it just from the hard numbers and the cost. You do have a lot of savings working in a cloud environment.
Just the agility,
and it just makes it easier all around. It makes it easier for your vendors to service the software. It makes it easier for you to get updates, security wise. And I know cloud security is a topic that comes up a lot, but my opinion is traditionally, I mean, these cloud providers are spending millions and millions of dollars making their systems secure. So I think that more often than not, a cloud provider's security is going to be far greater than the security that your own team may be able to provide.
A legacy installed software that gets updates once or twice a year is never going to be able to keep up with something in the cloud that's getting updates daily, hourly, to the minute.
Very true.
Evolving threats. So I think the cloud's got them beat there.
Absolutely,
hands down. So when it comes to the supply chain, I mean, I think of logistics and supply chain as like just a 10 million pound dinosaur, right? So I think of it as like there's all these different companies along the way that are all kind of shipping from one place to the next. And I mean, we've seen this a lot in the last year with
absolutely
all kinds of products.
Yeah.
Everything. Go try to buy a new car.
Yeah.
Or, a computer or anything.
Housing supplies,
electronic.
everything.
Yeah. And I mean, we could probably talk about that, in great detail, but and I'm sure you know a lot about it. But I mean, it makes sense that industry, it didn't adopt the cloud early on, that they just have so many different things that they're involved in, and it's such a complex process that they just kind of dug their heels in and stuck around with what they had. And so they're really ripe for kind of a disruption.
Yeah, it's. I think it really is time for the cloud to kind of take a bigger step in the supply chain software world. But I do kind of understand where a lot of these organizations are coming from, in that if a warehouse management system for a large distributor is down even for a couple minutes, I mean, that can cause chaos of ripple effects. It's not just the immediate time it's down, but it can throw your warehousing operation off for days, or trying to recover from something like that. So I very much can understand where these kind of companies and organizations are coming from. Sure. But I think that a lot of that has kind of progressed and come up within the last 3 to 5 years. A lot of times these are guaranteed SLAs or service level agreements. So the cloud providers and even the SaaS software companies will contractually guarantee you, okay, your systems will be available typically, I mean, it's like 99.99% of the time, it's a very high number. So, and those are contractually obligated types of things. So, if your provider's not adhering to those, well, then you can kind of get some recourse from that. So I think that those types of things and just other success stories too, some of the early adopters, other companies have been able to see, okay, this is what company A, B, C has done, and they've been successful moving their supply chain systems into the cloud. And so there's just that building level of confidence. There's that kind of building momentum of, all right, the technology is finally there that we really can take advantage of this.
Sure. So why did the whole world run out of computer chips? What happened? Like, what's going on? Why we can't buy anything with chips in
Yeah, it's an extremely complicated question, and I'm probably only qualified to comment on a small portion of it, because you'd have to probably really talk to an economist and all kind of different people to understand fully. But
I'm just not making enough.
I think that there's a concept that you learn. I learned it in supply chain classes at Georgia Tech called the bullwhip effect, and it kind of, if you can imagine what a bullwhip looks like, I mean, probably not the best name, but you can kind of imagine what this curving whip looks like. Of that, the end consumer is the smallest at the beginning, and so they're going to see the fewest kind of variations in the whole supply chain. But just due to the way that ordering from different vendors works, as you move farther and farther back into, farther up the tier of suppliers, that becomes much more pronounced. So a 10 unit fluctuation in demand at the end consumer level could result in millions of units of fluctuations to the raw materials provider. And it's those types of things that are just, when demand shifts as drastically as it did during the pandemic, it's extremely hard for these upstream suppliers to recover. So I mean, I don't know specifics, but it could easily go back to, the raw materials coming out of the ground to make some of the silicon and the chips and things. That is what got out of whack and has led to some of these other shortages. But I think it's also a combination of things. I know that, there's been manufacturing challenges as well that, we're just reaching capacity, which it sounds crazy, but the demand is so high for chips now, and it's a 3 to 5 year process to build some of these foundries that are making these things. So it takes a long time.
So it's the perfect storm.
Exactly.
It's crazy high demand, not enough people, COVID happened.
Yeah.
You've got, maybe capacity manufacturing.
Yeah, perfect storm is the best way to say
everything has one in it. A teddy bear that talks to you that you pull the cord on, it's got a little chip in there probably
probably does, yeah.
It's picking out what thing to say.
Yeah.
So
most people don't think about every car just about nowadays, has a computer chip, if not multiple computer chips in it. So I don't quote me on the source, but I remember seeing somewhere that the average luxury car nowadays has almost 200 million lines of code running all the various different pieces of it, which is hard to fathom. That's just mind-boggling.
Truck manufacturers, and I saw this a couple of months ago. So they were building the trucks. I think GMC was doing this, maybe Ford as well, and I don't know, maybe Toyota even. So a lot of the big ones. They were building the vehicles. They didn't have all of the components they needed, so they were just building them anyway and just parking them in a huge holding lot.
Doesn't surprise me.
And they had just tens of thousands of 98% finished vehicles that were just sitting there waiting and they're just like, we're going to keep going anyway. And I think they even had a name for it, build shy. So they were literally just almost finishing and just keep the line moving.
Yeah.
So
and that's hopefully we start to see some of these supply chain fluctuations working themselves out. But I will say for the industry overall, there's a huge spotlight now shined on supply chain. Where it used to maybe just be something people in the industry are talking about, everyone is now very aware of. We couldn't get toilet paper, we couldn't get hand sanitizer, all of these things. It's now very much in the forefront of people's minds that this is, it can affect our daily life. It can affect, everything. And you start thinking about scenarios where food supply chains, how critical are that to the way that we live nowadays? And so, it's things that folks that worked in supply chain knew about, but it's now so much in the forefront of everyone's mind that I think there's going to be continued innovation and continued investment in the technology that powers supply chains. And that's why I think that PorterLogic is kind of really in a good position, and we're poised well.
Well, a spotlight being on the industry puts you guys in a wonderful position.
Absolutely.
Because your conversations you're having with these people that are looking at this, it's very relevant.
Yeah.
So question. So it seems like from listening to everything that you've become an expert, and of course your industry very, very knowledgeable of what you do, but then also customer service and customer satisfaction. So tell us about how important that is in what you do, and how you developed it and how our audience can develop it and what they do.
Great question. And I really think that a lot of success in business does come back to the relationships and how you deal with the people on your team, your customers. I mean, you really have to look at it as a partnership, especially kind of where we're at. I mentioned we're kind of piloting a lot of the software. And so, that is very much built on relationships. So I think that probably the best advice that I could give, just generally speaking, of what's worked for me, is you have to be doing something that you really enjoy. I mean, you can tell I love software and I love supply chain. It's like the perfect marriage. So if you're not doing something that you enjoy, it's difficult to service customers and really have that full, team partnership feel. And, people can see that kind of stuff. So I think that that's one of the things, is find somewhere that you really love and enjoy to work, and then it won't be as big of a challenge.
It's more natural.
Exactly, yes. And I think it's just, we only have so long that we're all here, and only so long, even a shorter amount of time, that we can all work, right? So it's like, why spend your time doing something that you don't enjoy? I think that's one of the beauties of entrepreneurship, and just, it's the world that we're in. I mean, while starting a company is by no means easy, it is a better time to be starting a company than 50 or 100 years ago. I mean, just the technology and the resources. I mean, Shopify is a company I look up to a ton, and I mean, they have just made it so easy that you can set up an online store and start selling. I mean, I'm not trying to do a sales pitch for them, but it's very easy. And so a lot of those types of technologies are making it a great time to be starting a business. But that would be maybe the advice and caution all wrapped in one, is do it in something that you really love and enjoy.
Yeah. So if you weren't doing PorterLogic, what do you think you'd be doing?
That's an interesting question, actually. I'm going to give a boring answer in that I
okay.
love what I'm doing. I mean, I love coding. I love technology. I do really love supply chain as well. So even if it wasn't PorterLogic, I would say it would be something in this arena still. Like, I mean, every day I wake up just feeling so lucky that I've built what I have and that I'm able to do what I do. I mean, it doesn't feel like work. And I know that sounds so cliche.
No,
but
like it's almost halfway a trick question, because I feel like if you do have a backup plan, then you're not going to put 100% into what you do.
Yeah.
So it's good that you don't have a backup plan.
I would agree. And I think that, extreme focus is one of the ways that one of the only ways to succeed in entrepreneurship. I mean, if you don't know exactly what you're doing and focused on your niche and your customers and your problem you're solving, I mean, there's so many other people doing it. Kind of to my point earlier about it is easier to start a company. I mean, that brings a lot of competition in in the types of folks that are starting companies. So I think that it's important.
Yeah, I mean, something that my husband tells me all the time is be a student of your profession.
I love that. There you go.
He's been telling me that for a while. So I totally get it.
Yeah.
Because it makes you, of course, better at what you do and better than some of your competition. Yeah. Even if you're not trying to compete with other companies, but it just makes you, just great at what you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So let me see. So how can we find you? What's your website? Do you have social media, phone number?
Yeah. So porterlogic.com. You can find us. We are mostly on LinkedIn and Twitter. So PorterLogic, at PorterLogic on Twitter and LinkedIn as well. I guess LinkedIn doesn't have like an ad. They need to brand that somehow. But yeah, so the company page is PorterLogic. So yeah, those are probably the best ways to kind of find out more about us. You can always email me, Jonathan at porterlogic.com.
Jonathan without an H.
Without an H, yes. Jonathan is a surprisingly it's a common name with a surprising number of spellings.
Yep.
So,
my husband's name is John with an H.
Okay,
so I always remember the different spellings.
There you go. Yep. Jonathan, Jonathan. So.
Got it. So then how can we help you as far as like referrals or anything goes?
Yeah, well, I would say, so I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but so the target customer we go after is that kind of mid-sized to small enterprise supply chain organization. So really any company that operates their own supply chain, whether that's a trucking fleet, all to a warehouse. I mean, to even just managing orders that you might have a third-party logistics company fulfilling. Any companies that have that kind of operations going, we can help with. So I think that anybody that you guys know or that is listening or anything like that you kind of needs some added flexibility and agility in their operations, I'd say give us a call.
Awesome. Well, we will keep that in mind. So thanks for coming on with us.
Yeah.
We appreciate you coming out here.
This has been a lot of fun. So
yeah, I was going to say we had a
really
good time.
So, yeah, thanks so
much. A lot of
much.
good conversation.
Absolutely.
So make sure y'all check him out on LinkedIn, website, email him if you got questions or anything. But yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much.
We'll see y'all in the next episode.
Have a great day.